Hello and welcome to Byju's IAS. Let's get started and look into the first article. The first article says 20 people die overnight due to oxygen crisis at Delhi hospital. We have another link article. It says will hang anyone obstructing oxygen supply wants Delhi High Court. Let's gel both these articles and understand what is this issue all about. Over the past 1 week, what we are witnessing is increasing cases of COVID-19. States like Maharashtra, states like Uttar Pradesh, states like West Bengal and Punjab, and couple of states in India are witnessing a spike when it comes to the COVID-19 cases. And when we take the second wave of COVID-19, what is impacting the most is that people are facing what is called as the shortness of the breath. Because they are facing the shortness of the breath, there is increase of the oxygen demand. As a result of the demand, they are not able to maintain and sustain the commensurate supply as well, which has resulted in number of deaths in number of states in India. So what are we discussing here? We would be discussing about why there is a drop when it comes to the oxygen supply, why there are issues with respect to the oxygen productivity, and what is causing the deaths in India because of the second wave of COVID-19 and the measures taken by the government. First up, when you look into the past 1 week, many breathless COVID-19 patients have died. Why? Because of the unavailability of the medical oxygen in hospitals across multiple states in India. So what we are supposed to understand is why is there an increase when it comes to the oxygen demand. When you look at the COVID patients, most of the COVID patients with this particular second wave are facing what is called as the respiratory tract infection. We know for the fact that when COVID hits, it obviously blocks certain areas when it comes to the lung and its functioning. So what is happening? There is blockage of the respiratory tract, and as a result, these patients who have such a symptom will require what is called as the oxygen. In such a scenario, what you are actually witnessing is increase of the shortness of the breath in number of people for which oxygen demand is increasing in India. So it is in a small portion but was prevalent in the wave 1, but in the wave 2 it has increased the shortness of breath, which is why there is excessive demand and the supply is not able to meet up to this particular demand. This is where we have to understand one of the concept called as the normal oxygen level. What is this normal oxygen level? We have something called as the oxygen saturation. What is this oxygen saturation? This basically measures how much of oxygen that is contained in the blood, that is in comparison to the full capacity. So basically this oxygen saturation is nothing but the amount of oxygen that the hemoglobin in our blood contains compared to how much it can actually contain. So what is the amount of oxygen that is present in the hemoglobin is what is this oxygen saturation point. If this is in the range of beyond 95%, then there are no issues. It is usually maintained in the range of 95 to 100%, but if it falls less than 90%, that is when there is shortness of the breath. That is when there is requirement of administration of the oxygen to that particular patient, and as a result, this condition where the oxygen saturation is less than 90% is what is called as hypoxemia. So what is hypoxemia? It is a condition where the value of the oxygen saturation level is fallen less than 90%, which indicates that supplemental oxygen has to be given to the COVID-19 patients. Now when we look into the statistics data with the National Climate Registry for COVID-19 shows a new emerging trend during the second COVID wave. That is, there is increasing cases of shortness of breath, and that happens to be the most clinical feature when it comes to the second wave. So when you compare the first wave with the second wave, there are more cases of shortness of breath that individuals are facing, which is why what we require is more medical oxygen. Now during the first wave, the demand for liquid medical oxygen increased from 700 metric tons per day to about 2800 metric tons per day. But during the second wave, it has skyrocketed to about 5000 million tons per day, which means to say that we are not able to balance the demand and supply. So what are the various issues when it comes to the demand and supply? What are the various issues why oxygen capacity is not being met in number of states in India. What are the major issues? Where did we go wrong? Let's try and understand. The first important factor what we have to look at is the logistics. You have number of states which are matching up to the demands as well as the supplies, but the problem is, let's say we require the particular cylinder, oxygen cylinder or production of oxygen in Delhi, but Delhi is not getting enough of oxygen. That is because of the logistics. There are no nearby setups or the production houses. The manufacturing entities are not present in and around Delhi. As a result, it has to be sourced from some other state. As a result, it has to be sourced from some other location, which is leading to logistical delay. So the first major issue with respect to why they are not able to provide oxygen on time is because of the location. Since the production unit is located in a different place or in a different region, this has led to undue delay in specific places. This is not just restricted to Delhi. It might be seen in number of other states like Maharashtra as well, even in Mumbai, because of the delay from the production unit to that particular place of destination, which has resulted in deaths in number of cases. Apart from this, the second major cause why oxygen is not present in the market, it is not going to the hospitals or it is not reaching the patients, is because of the black marketing or what is called as illegal storing of the oxygen cylinder. So what is this illegal storage? People have hoarded oxygen cylinders. They have held these oxygen cylinders. They have increased the price of this oxygen cylinders. What they are conducting is pure business operations. This is where we see the hapless patients pay high price. This ultimately means that there is vulture culture that is prevalent in the market. So what is happening here? There is illegal storing of the oxygen cylinder, which has resulted in spike of the oxygen prices, and at the same time people are not able to get the oxygen because these people who have hoarded the oxygen cylinders want to make profits even during this devastating times. In order to overcome this particular issue, we have the central government which has spoken to other countries and it is looking at importing the oxygen demand with the supply, and as a result number of countries have also accepted to the call of India. Followed by this, the central government has also sanctioned installations of about 162 pressure swing absorption oxygen plants, and this will be used and this will also increase the oxygen productivity as well. In this particular backdrop, we have the Delhi High Court which has gone ahead and said because of the serious reports that are coming up, oxygen tankers are being stopped from reaching Delhi. The Delhi High Court has warned that it will hang any person who tries to obstruct oxygen supplies to the hospitals. It is this that we have to understand in reference to both these articles. Now let's look into the next article. This article says chances of infection after COVID-19 vaccination. What is this article trying to speak about? We have the Indian Council of Medical Research. It has reported that around 2 to 4 of 10,000 people given 2 doses of COVID-19 vaccine have tested positive for the disease. What do we mean by it? As of now, there are two vaccines that are present in India. Then there is the third one as well, which India has given emergency approval. But let's focus on Covishield and Covaxin. What exactly happens? Whether it is Covishield vaccine or it is Covaxin vaccine, both these vaccines will have to be administered to the people. There is one dose initially, and after a few weeks what we also have is 2 doses. These 2 doses that is administered to a particular person or to a person who wants to get relieved from the COVID-19 is where the vaccines are administered. But in spite of the vaccine administered to such a person, there are cases where the person who's administered with vaccine is also getting infected with COVID-19. So such an area where a person is administered the first dose, he is given the second dose, in spite of he being given the second dose, when the vaccine is not able to stop the virus from attacking, that is what is called as breakthrough infection. So what is this breakthrough infection? The vaccine is not able to stop the virus, the vaccine is not able to prevent this particular issue, and ultimately it is the virus which which is breaking that particular vaccine and infecting the people, which is called as the breakthrough infection. So a breakthrough infection is a situation where a person is administered 2 doses of vaccine, but in spite of the vaccine being administered, the person is getting reinfected. That is what is called as breakthrough infection. Let's look at statistics when it comes to India. 11.6 crore doses of the Covishield vaccine had been administered. Among 10.3 crore people who had taken only first dose, 17,145 had got infected. That translates nearly to 0.02% prevalence. Among 1.57 crore people who received the second dose as well, 5014 or about 0.03% had got infected later. Now when we consider the statistics with respect to Covaxin, 1.1 crore doses of Covaxin were administered until now, out of which 93.56 lakh who took only first dose. So far 4208 have got the infection, which has the prevalence of about 0.04%, and among the 17.37 lakh who have taken the second shot, only 695 have been infected again, that is reflecting about 0.04% prevalence. With this in picture, what we can actually say is that these vaccines are not able to fully protect, and protecting an individual is not completely possible with the help of the vaccines. What are the possible reasons why a particular vaccine is not able to stop the virus? There are a number of reasons for it. It is well understood that no vaccine can offer what is called as the 100% protection. Even when there is trials that are conducted, clinical trials that are conducted, it offers an efficiency of about 65% to 75% only, which means to say that these vaccines will not offer 100% protection to all the individuals. That is one part. Apart from this, what we are witnessing right now in the second wave is there is virus mutation that is happening. Virus is also changing its structure as well. So because of the emergence of the new variants, there might be an issue where the virus has mutated itself and it is causing reinfection in spite of the vaccine being administered to an individual. The third is those individuals, that is the healthcare workers and the frontline workers, are always with the COVID-19 patients. Since they are with the COVID-19 patients, they are getting infected because of the constant high exposure to the COVID-19 patients. So what we are actually witnessing is that during this particular period, there have been instances where the first dose is given to a particular individual, and after the first dose and the second dose, again people are getting infected. Even after the second dose, there are people who are getting infected. The possible reasons are because of the emergence of new variants. It is primarily the healthcare and frontline workers, and also because no vaccine offers 100% efficiency. So what is the inference that we can draw? So when we look into this particular part, no vaccine is 100% efficient, but if the vaccine is administered, the characteristics or the symptoms of the virus can be comparatively mitigated, which means to say a person who is suffering from the vaccine breakthrough infection will have what is called as mild symptoms for the second time. For the first time, when the person is impacted by the COVID-19 vaccine, he might have strong symptoms. It might also result in death. It might also result in strong symptoms and suffocation as well. But when it comes to the second time after the vaccine is administered, it can result in mild symptoms, which means the person need not have to go to the hospital. It might not lead to strong symptoms. He might not go to hospitals and get the oxygen as well. So what we witness is mild symptoms after the administration of vaccine. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says groundwater depletion may reduce winter cropping intensity by 20% in India. What is the context? The article says India is the second largest producer of wheat. It currently has a potential of about 30 million hectares, where these 13 million hectares is currently being used for the productivity of the wheat. Now the question is, India is the second largest producer. Which is the largest producer in the world? So put it on the comment section. So what is this article trying to say? The article currently goes on to say, because of the increasing groundwater exploitation, there could be a possibility in the near future where the area that is currently allocated to the wheat is about 30 million hectares. This can drop as well. So the number can drop as well. And as a result, the intensity of the wheat production can also drop. The yield in the country can also drop. This may lead to food insecurity in India. Let's try and understand what is this study all about. When we look at groundwater, this happens to be one of the valuable resources. What we have to understand is the meaning of groundwater overuse or groundwater overexploitation, which means there is a particular situation where for a particular period of time where we are increasingly exploiting the water, extracting the water from the ground, but there is no recharge that is happening in that particular period. That is what is called as groundwater exploitation. So this is basically a situation over a particular period of time where the extraction is comparatively greater than the average recharge rate. That situation is what is called as the groundwater overuse. What is this article currently trying to say? According to a study conducted by an international group, it says 13% of the villages in which farmers plant a winter crop are located in critically water depleted regions. Villages in the near future may lose 68% of their cropped area in future if access to all groundwater irrigation is completely lost, which means to say currently what we are effectively making use is of the groundwater. In the near future, because of over exploitation of the groundwater, we would not be in a position to irrigate all these areas where the wheat productivity is currently happening, which may lead to drop in the yield, and it may also lead to those areas which are currently being producing the wheat areas. Such areas may in the near future may not get enough amount of irrigation. As a result, there will be an area where wheat productivity cannot take place, which ultimately means the yield will go down, and this may result in food insecurity in India as well. So what is an alternative strategy? Will this alternative strategy work? The study says no. How? Let's say for example, if we are switching from the groundwater exploitation tool to what is called as the canal irrigation. Even in such a situation, the cropping intensity may decline by 9% nationally, says this particular study. Apart from this, what we are witnessing is the vagaries of the monsoon. What we are witnessing is the impact of the climate change. Because of the impact of the climate change and dependence of India on the monsoon, again, this is bound to impact the overall productivity of the wheat, says this particular study. So how do we overcome this particular issue? Currently, we have to basically look at using the sprinkler, drip irrigation, or maybe switching to less water intensive crops. What are some of the less water intensive crops? We have what is called as ragi, we have something called as bajra, or let's say for example there are other crops as well. Such crops will have to be made use, or the production of this particular crop has to be increased. So the central government will have to provide more minimum support prices to these crops so that they shift to other crops as well. And at the same time, we have the state governments and the number of governments as well which are providing subsidized electricity. Because they are providing subsidized electricity, they are exploiting the groundwater, which has resulted in what is called as overuse. So the subsidized electricity will have to be minimized, will have to be rationalized over a period of time, such that this does not become a disaster for the farmer. So the overall strategy would be to use water saving technologies and also limiting the subsidized electricity over a period of time. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about what is called as MOXIE. What does it stand for? It stands for Mars Oxygen Insight to Resource Utilization Experiment. What is the objective of this particular experiment? Basically, this will try to produce oxygen from the marine carbon dioxide atmosphere. So NASA here has extracted oxygen from the carbon dioxide in Mars, that is in the thin Martian atmosphere. So it produced about 5 grams of oxygen, equivalent to about 10 minutes worth of breathing for an astronaut, and this happens to be the first extraction of a natural resource from the environment of another planet. This can be important from your preliminary examination. So kindly remember, MOXIE is nothing but Mars Oxygen In Situ Resource Utilization Experiment. Who is it conducted by? It is conducted by NASA. Where is it on? It is on Mars, and this is about conduction or extraction of oxygen from carbon dioxide in the Martian atmosphere. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about reforms in the national pension system. What is this national pension system? This happens to be a pension system that is sponsored by the central government. It was initially introduced in the year 2004. It was only for the government employees, but with time it was open to all citizens after 2009. Currently, what is this scheme all about? This is nothing but a pension and an investment scheme developed by the government of India to provide citizens a long time financial security. So what do? They invest their money, they get their salaries, or through any other means they invest this particular money in what is called as the national pension scheme. So ultimately they will have their savings in the national pension scheme, and at the same time they might also receive salaries from this particular system after their retirement period. So basically this is under the guidance of the Pension Fund Regulatory or the Developmental Authority of India, which is also called as the PFRDA. This pension regulator is planning to come up with certain reforms. What are these reforms? One, individuals between the age group of 18 and 65 can currently enter the national pension scheme. The regulator is planning to hike the limit to about 70 years. So earlier, any person could have joined this particular system from the age group of 18 to 75. Now 65 would be increased to about 70. So until 70 years, any person may enter this particular national pension scheme and invest in this pension scheme. The second reform says NPS contributors can withdraw 60% of their contributions after retirement, while the remaining 40% must be maintained to purchase annuity. What do we mean by it? This is a hypothetical situation, just numbers so that you understand it better. Let's say I as a person have started investing in this national pension scheme at the age of, let's say, about 45 years. At the end of the retirement age, that is, let's say, 65 years, all the savings that I have is, let's say, hypothetical numbers, it is about 1 lakh. Out of this 1 lakh, 60% of the contributions can be withdrawn, which means to say 60,000 can be withdrawn immediately. So I would be able to withdraw the 60,000 in a lump sum. So the government would be able to give me 60,000 as a lump sum money, but the other 40,000 that is present will be given to me in the form of a monthly fixed pension. So 60% would be the lump sum money that I would be able to take. The other 40% would be in the form of monthly pension. In this present scheme, as given in the present format, what we have is, let's say there is a person who at the end of his retirement age has saved about 2 lakhs. This person who saved about 2 lakhs would be able to withdraw in lump sum altogether 2 lakhs. But the reform that they are planning to introduce is they are planning to expand this sum from 2 lakh to about 5 lakhs, so that the person who has accumulated about 5 lakh in the national pension scheme, he need not have to go through this 40%, but instead he can withdraw all this 5 lakh as a lump sum money. Currently it is at about 2 lakh and this will be increased to about 5 lakh. But what will be the changes? Whether this changes will actually be introduced or not, once we have the clear detail, we will take this up in our economy this week session. You have to just have a fair bit of an idea. For the detailed analysis, you can look into our economy this week sessions. Now let's look into the mains practice questions. What do you understand by breakthrough infection? Will vaccines offer lasting protection against COVID-19? Critically evaluate. Discuss the causes of groundwater depletion and its socio-economic and ecological consequences. Suggest measures to conserve groundwater. So please write all your answers on the comment section. Peer review. Give positive feedback to your friends' answers. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.